Discover how one new waitress transformed rude billionaire's arrogance into a heartwarming change. Ava glanced at the clock, her heart racing as the minute hand ticked closer to opening time at the Cozy Corner Cafe. Today felt different. Excitement mixed with an unfamiliar tension that settled in her stomach like a heavy stone. Her usual routines, pouring coffee, wiping tables, and cracking jokes with the regulars, were a source of solace. Yet, beneath her bright smile, she battled doubts. The weight of her family's expectations pressed on her. With her younger brother's recent injury, her dream of becoming an artist faded further into the background while supporting her family took center stage. The cafe door swung open, and in walked Jack, his flashy clothes instantly overshadowing the cozy warmness of the cafe. Cloaked in arrogance, he leveled dismissive glares at the other patrons, who exchanged glances, lips pressed tight with surprise. Ava's pulse quickened, dread flooding her senses. As the resident people person, her job relied on keeping the atmosphere light and welcoming. How could he treat her friends like they were less than? Questions swirled as he arrogantly scanned the menu, the air thickening with palpable discord. "Do you people ever upgrade? This feels like a time warp," he scoffed, dismissing the cafe's charm and history with a flick of disdain. Anguish surged inside Ava. This wasn't just a place to work, it was a sacred space for those who lived here. Uncertainty clawed at her. Should she confront him or let it slide? After all, the bills had to be paid. Yet the defiance smoldered within her, urging her to stand her ground, to fight for her community, one cup of coffee at a time. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Ava's thoughts jolted as the cafe phone rang, the sound echoing like a gunshot in the tense silence. "It's Mom," she muttered, swallowing hard. The conversation began with urgency. Her brother had been hurt. "Ava, we need you here." The words struck her like an unyielding wave. She felt shaky, the internal conflict intensifying. How could she juggle the pressures from home with a rude billionaire breathing down her neck? Jack caught her eye, a glimmer of something, perhaps curiosity, crossing his features as he regarded her emotional turmoil. This was more than a simple confrontation. This was a revelation. Would anyone understand if she stepped away, her fears of inadequacy draping over her like a shroud? Each tick of the clock felt like a countdown to an explosion of her pent-up frustration. The cafe bustled around her, but Ava's world narrowed to Jack's smirk and her crushing dilemma. The push and pull of their existence had converged, and with her brother's plight weighing her down, she found the courage to confront Jack's arrogance. "Why do you belittle them?" she challenged, feeling the heat rise in her cheeks. "Do they not have a right to their space?" Jack's expression wavered, but just like that, the moment hung suspended, unresolved. Uneasiness settled. Ava grappled with the fear that she might ignite a fire too big to extinguish. Would she be heard, or would she be drowned out? The stakes had never felt higher. Ava's heart raced as she held Jack's gaze, challenging his smirk with the intensity of her frustration. This was not merely a moment of irritation. It represented her fight for recognition, both for herself and for the patrons who frequented the Cozy Corner Cafe. She knew that underestimating the strength of her voice could have repercussions beyond the immediate interaction. The gravity of her brother's situation weighed heavily on her, but her resolve was crystallizing in the face of Jack's arrogance. As she stepped closer, she felt the tension in the air shift, charged with an energy that granted her a surprising sense of power. "It's not about the place being antique or trendy," she continued, her voice steadier than she felt. "It's about the people who come here. They deserve respect, just like anyone else." Each word felt like a leap toward reclaiming her own values amid her tumultuous circumstances. For a brief moment, Jack's expression faltered. The confidence that usually dripped from his demeanor trembled. Ava noticed the flicker of surprise in his eyes. Perhaps, beneath that polished exterior, was a man who had never truly confronted his entitlement. She dared to hope that her words had reached him. The cafe's ambient noise faded momentarily. The clatter of dishes and the hum of idle chatter felt like a distant chorus supporting her plea. But just as quickly as the moment grew ripe with potential, Jack's shield of arrogance slammed down again, a sneer creeping back across his face. Entitlement? You think they deserve respect because they walk through the door? Look around. This isn't a charity gig, he retorted, reigniting the fire in her belly. Ava inhaled deeply, her mind racing. Was she really prepared to engage in this debate? Could she forge a meaningful connection from this apparent confrontation? A flicker of determination surged through her. She didn't merely want to defend the cafe and its patrons. She yearned to carve her own path in this moment, to define her stance against the world pressing down on her. Respect is not given based on status or wealth, she replied, her tone firm. It's earned through a basic acknowledgement of humanity. Take a moment to see the people here. She gestured to the familiar faces she had come to cherish, the elderly man who read the paper every morning, the mother who brought her children after school, the artist sketching in the corner. They have stories. They are important. Jack searched her face, seemingly taken aback by her passion. Ava's heart raced with the possibility that she might effect change, however small it may be. What if this encounter wasn't just a fleeting moment, but instead unlocked something new within both of them? As silence draped over them, Jack's facade cracked just enough for Ava to glimpse something raw beneath the surface. Curiosity? Regret? She couldn't be sure, but she sensed there was more to him than the dismissive billionaire. Just then, the cafe door swung open, releasing a burst of light and a fresh wave of customers, unintentionally breaking the weight of their confrontation. With the spell momentarily lifted, Ava straightened her shoulders, realizing that this wasn't over. She wouldn't let it end here. Whatever the outcome, she would not retreat into silence. This was her journey, and her growth demanded a willingness to engage, even with those who challenged her ideals. "Would you like to give people here a chance?" she asked, her voice softer now, yet still steady. "Perhaps I can show you that there's more to life than wealth." Jack's gaze sharpened as he pondered the question, and for the first time, Ava felt a flicker of hope that they might discover something significant together. But then she recalled her brother waiting for her at home, pulling her back into the swirl of anxiety threatening to overtake her. Could she balance this new confrontation and the realities of her family's needs? As the cafe buzzed to life around her, Ava made a decision. She would follow this thread, challenge herself and perhaps even Jack, because exploring who she was meant confronting the uncharted territories of others too. "Let's see how you feel by the end of your visit. Maybe you'll leave with a different perspective or at least a better taste in your mouth," she challenged, her voice laced with newfound confidence. The question lingered. Where would this daring leap of faith lead her? As Jack's expression revealed a mix of curiosity and uncertainty, Ava felt the tension crackle in the air once more, signaling that both their journeys were only just beginning. Ava fought to maintain her composure as the cafe swirled with life around her. The scent of freshly brewed coffee mingled with the chatter of patrons, but her focus remained locked on Jack. His initial facade of indifference was fading, revealing a flicker of intrigue, yet she sensed the precarious nature of this moment. Could she truly shift his perception? As the current shifted in her favor, she felt the weight of responsibility settle on her shoulders. This wasn't merely about enlightening Jack. It was also a test of her own growth. The anxiety surrounding her brother's situation hadn't vanished, but now it intertwined with a burgeoning confidence. Ava had never intended to become a catalyst for change, yet here she was, stepping into a role she hadn't fully embraced. "Do you really think respect is reserved for those wearing tailored suits?" she asked, her voice firm yet curious. Each word was a careful step on the tightrope of their interaction. Jack raised an eyebrow, seemingly caught off guard by her insistence. "You'd be surprised at the world I navigate," he replied, the edge in his voice diminishing as he regarded her anew. "Maybe so," she countered, her heart racing faster. "But perhaps you've never had to see it through anyone else's eyes." She took a breath, allowing herself to be vulnerable. Would that approach work? She didn't want to appear confrontational, but instead wanted to guide him toward understanding. You've been so consumed with your own world that you've forgotten the value of connection. For a moment, Jack appeared to contemplate her words. The corner of his mouth twitched as if a smile might break free, but hesitation replaced it. Ava's heart pounded as she realized this exchange was a mirror reflecting her own ambitions. She desperately wanted to prove not just to Jack but also to herself that her voice mattered. "Tell me about the people you admire here, Ava," he finally said, breaking the tension. With that simple question, a wave of relief washed over her. She hadn't anticipated this turn. Perhaps there was real potential in their dialogue. "Well," she began, her thoughts racing, "there's Mr. Thompson, who spends every morning reading the newspaper, always sharing witty observations with anyone who will listen. He's a retired teacher, and he knows so much." Jack's interest deepened, his posture shifting as he leaned forward, engaged. Ava felt emboldened by this change. "Then there's Lisa, a single mother who comes here with her kids. She juggles 2 jobs just to make ends meet while still managing to fill her children's lives with laughter and warmth." Jack nodded slowly, having moved from dismissive to intrigued as her words poured forth. It was as if she had tapped into an uncharted reservoir of shared humanity. Each description was a testament to resilience, the weight of their stories forging an understanding neither had anticipated. "I can see how they matter to you," he confessed, his previous smirk replaced by a contemplative gaze. "But how do you think I fit into all this?" The question hung heavily in the air, forcing Ava to confront her own motivations. Did she want to transform him simply for the sake of the cafe, or was there a deeper pull she didn't yet understand? What emerged was a collision of her quest for authenticity and their conversation's growing significance. "I think it's about stepping outside the bubble we create for ourselves," she replied cautiously. "Sometimes we need a nudge to acknowledge how interconnected we all are, even when we seem worlds apart." In that moment, she realized Jack's reluctance to acknowledge others stemmed from his own insecurities. This wasn't just a battle of ideals. It delved into his pride and vulnerabilities. If she continued to forge this bond, she would have the chance to influence, but it risked opening a door she might not be prepared to walk through. The cafe buzzed around them, but their exchange had taken on a different rhythm now, one laden with unspoken possibilities. As he mulled over her words, revealing a glimmer of introspection, Ava felt a surge of determination. This was her growth journey just as much as it was his. Suddenly she spotted her brother through the glass window, his face etched with worry. The juxtaposition of her personal obligations pulled at her, a stark reminder of the tightrope she walked. "What happens if I leave this place changed?" Jack asked, his tone softer, laced with uncertainty. "Then maybe you'll discover a way to connect your world with someone else's," she suggested, her resolve hardening. "But you'll have to take the first step." The air thickened with unspoken challenges. Would Jack take that step, and in doing so, would she allow herself the grace to embrace the complexities of both her dreams and realities? The moment felt precarious, and the outcome remained tantalizingly uncertain. Ava's heart thumped with the knowledge that transforming Jack's perspective might also unravel her own. As Jack contemplated her words, their lives poised on the edge of a decision, she felt an intensity brewing. She could sense the pivotal moment approaching. Would they both emerge from this experience transformed, or would hesitation hold them back? The answer was just beyond their reach, a breath away. Ava took a steadying breath, her senses heightened by the lingering uncertainty that filled the air between them. Time felt suspended as Jack wrestled with her words, his expression oscillating between irritation and intrigue. The cafe had become more than a backdrop. It was a crucible of transformation, one that demanded she harness her voice anew. "Change isn't just an abstract concept," she said, her voice gaining momentum. "It's collective experiences, moments that build perspectives." The words spilled forth, each syllable charged with the weight of her growing conviction. The desire to shift Jack's understanding mirrored her own journey toward self-acceptance. Moments of connection were the threads that wove individuals together, and she intended to demonstrate that to him. Jack shifted in his seat, the tension in his posture easing slightly. "What if I'm not ready for change?" he challenged, a flicker of vulnerability crossing his features. His defenses were lowering, and Ava recognized the opportunity for deeper exploration. "None of us are ever fully ready. Acknowledging that uncertainty is a part of growth," she replied, her heart racing. "There's strength in admitting there's more beyond our immediate understanding." Her words were fueled by the backdrop of her brother's situation, a testament that change often sprang from discomfort. Just as she thought she could bask in Jack's newfound openness, the weight of her brother's worries surged again. She caught sight of him outside, his shoulders stooped, eyes reflecting an unresolved storm. An instinctive impulse to protect him surged within her. If she was to take a leap forward, she needed to foil her own tendency to retreat. She could help Jack, but she must also stand strong for her brother. "Sometimes it takes someone knocking on the door of our comfort zone to wake us up," Ava continued, her words directed toward Jack, but laced with personal revelation. Moments earlier, she had felt like a mere waitress, but now, standing her ground, she realized she could be so much more. Jack's thoughtful silence was a palpable response. She could see calculations whirring through his mind, a cautious planning of how to engage with the reality she was presenting. She needed to break down the barriers that so rigidly defined his identity, allowing him to glimpse the world beyond his self-imposed fortress. "You mentioned those people you admire," Jack began, his gaze sharpening on her. "So, if I want to connect, I should learn more about them." "Yes," Ava encouraged, sensing a shift. "Engagement cultivates empathy. Start small. Ask them about their lives, share stories. You might unearth something transformative in those interactions." This was more than about Jack. It was a mirror reflecting her own path forward, marked by the need to confront her own struggles head-on. As her thoughts raced, she felt a prickle of apprehension invade the edges of her resolve. What if Jack's growth drew her deeper into her own vulnerabilities? What if he questioned her motives, exposing her hesitation? A decision loomed on the horizon. She had to balance her attempts at connection with the need to safeguard her own emotional landscape. "What if they don't accept me?" Jack interjected, his tone rife with self-doubt. "How do I know they won't just see me for who I am now?" Ava considered this, his question striking at her core fears. "Fear is often the roadblock we put in our own way," she found herself saying, her voice steadying with conviction. "True connection requires us to be seen, fully and honestly. Perhaps it's more about their response than your worth." The air crackled with tension as Jack absorbed her words, his gaze flickering between skepticism and curiosity. He was standing on the precipice, and she could see the internal battle brewing within him, the tantalizing prospect of change against the inertia of comfort. Suddenly Ava's phone buzzed in her pocket. She hesitated, contemplating whether to check it. The prospect of news regarding her brother clawed at her focus and threatened to unravel the progress she had made. "Go ahead," Jack suggested softly, sensing her distraction. "It's okay to step away if you need to." Taking a moment to search his face, Ava knew she had a choice, whether to immerse herself in her brother's issues or delve deeper into this unexpected connection with Jack. The stakes were rising in a way that felt foreign and thrilling. She opened her messaging app, the screen illuminating her brother's urgent plea for help. The tug-of-war between responsibility and personal growth surged within her. Would she remain committed to her own development, or would she retreat back into her role as protector? "Jack," she said as their eyes locked, "I need to decide who I want to be. Right here, right now." The moment was pivotal, and what happened next could redefine not only Jack's journey but also her own. Realizing the trajectory they were on could either anchor them in fear or propel them toward growth, Ava's heart raced with the weight of impending decisions. Would she step into the unknown fully, or would the familiar comforts of her past pull her back into a stagnant cycle? As she awaited Jack's response, the tension hung densely in the air. She felt the cracks in the walls surrounding both their worlds, and with it, the uncertainty that was edging ever closer to a breakthrough. The path ahead remained uncharted, each step fraught with the tension of potential transformation. Ava stared at Jack, her breath held in anticipation, every nerve ending alive with the weight of the choice she faced. She didn't only sense the urgency of the moment, she felt it pressing against her chest, an almost tangible pressure driving her thoughts. In the recesses of her mind, the image of her brother's stormy expression flicked into view, a harsh reminder of her responsibilities. Yet she could no longer ignore the growing impulse to redefine her boundaries. "What do you want to do, Ava?" she questioned internally, a silent dialogue spinning in the whirlpool of her subconscious. Jack's gaze was steady, but Ava could detect the shifting beneath the surface, the way his posture subtly mirrored her own internal conflict. It dawned on her that his journey wasn't solely about confronting his fears, but also illuminating her own. Her desire to protect her brother had become a shield, one that kept her from fully embracing her potential. "I need to decide if I'm willing to invest in this," she thought, the realization wrapping around her tightly. "Invest in Jack. Invest in myself." "You mentioned wanting to connect with others," she spoke at last, her voice imbued with newfound resolve. "What if I stay? What if I help you navigate this?" Jack's expression flickered, uncertainty mingling with something deeper, hope, perhaps, or curiosity. The vulnerability she sensed in him was no longer a threat. It was an invitation for shared growth. "I don't know if I can do this," he confessed, his voice fragile yet sincere. "What if it ends up hurting more than helping?" "Growth always comes with discomfort," she replied, a tinge of fervor igniting her words. "What if embracing that discomfort propels us toward a better version of ourselves? It won't be easy, but the potential for transformation is worth the risk." They held each other's gaze, an unspoken understanding weaving between them, a thread of vulnerability connecting their separate battles. Jack was weighing the paradox the world presented. Was it easier to remain shrouded in isolation, or to brave the risk of connection and discomfort in the hopes of splashing into something new? "Maybe that's my growth too," Ava pondered quietly. "Maybe I'm learning that stepping back does not mean abandoning those I care for." As she contemplated, Ava felt a ripple of determination course through her. Going back to her brother's struggles wasn't retreating. It was recognizing the complexities of her own journey. There was a highly intricate dance between her obligations and personal development, and she was beginning to grasp the rhythm of it. "Let's start slow," Ava broke through the reflective silence. "We can practice together. After all, that's what this is about, right? Finding common ground, being vulnerable, and realizing that we're not alone in our experiences." Jack smiled, a hint of relief breaking through the clouds of his earlier skepticism. "Guiding each other, you mean? It sounds easier when you say it like that." Ava let out a small laugh, feeling the tension cede just a fraction. They both recognized that this was more than a casual conversation. It was the foundation of something bigger, an opportunity to reshape their narratives together. Yet as they held this fragile moment, the nagging reminder of her brother's urgency lingered like a shadow in the back of her mind. She had a decision to make, not just regarding her engagement with Jack, but about how she could balance her role as a protector and the blossoming possibility of being an individual in her own right. "I can do this," she reassured herself, feeling the winds of change begin to stir. "But I need to confront the complexities at home." Doubt didn't vanish entirely. It hovered just outside their conversation, waiting for the right moment to pounce. "How can I help him while I'm here?" Ava muttered quietly, half to herself, half to Jack, the shadows of responsibility looming. Jack leaned closer, curiosity shimmering in his eyes. "What's going on with your brother?" The question hung in the air, laced with unvoiced concern. It was as if Jack, through his own struggle, had mirrored her unresolved tension, a call for vulnerability that Ava had yet to embrace fully. Ava hesitated, the road ahead starting to unfold, but the weight of her brother's plight collided with her urge for connection. She realized they both stood at the precipice of unveiling deeper truths, what lay beneath fear, commitment, and ultimately, growth. As her heart thudded, she glanced back at her phone. The notification blinked insistently, a reminder of the choices ahead. Standing at this crossroads, would she impart her worries regarding her brother, or would she take a leap of faith and reveal her own vulnerabilities to Jack? The moment stretched out, thick with unspoken words and endless potential. Which path would she choose? What would it reveal about her? In that charged silence, Ava recognized that the next move was not just a choice, It was the key to unlocking a chapter that held the promise of transformation, and perhaps a more profound connection with the man sitting opposite her. Ava felt the weight of Jack's question pressing against her chest, but she knew that she had to make a choice, one that might finally strip away the barriers she'd constructed. The urge to share her fears about her brother warred with an equally compelling desire to open up about herself. Each path seemed fraught with risk, yet it was in that uncertainty that Ava sensed a flicker of hope. She began, her voice catching slightly. I worry about my brother. He's been struggling, caught in this cycle of anger and self-doubt. The words spilled out, the dam finally releasing. I feel like I have to shield him from everything, and I've been so focused on his needs that I'm not sure I even know what I want anymore. Jack listened intently, his expression shifting from curiosity to empathy. Sounds like you're carrying a lot of weight. But you can't pour from an empty cup, right? He leaned back, allowing her space while encouraging her to dig deeper. What do you want, Ava? His gentle prodding stirred something within her, a long-buried desire to reclaim her own voice. I want to help him, she said softly. But I also want to explore my own path. To be free from just being the protector. The resonating silence that followed hung heavy with possibility. In that moment, Ava realized that her instinct to prioritize her brother had become a tether that restrained her from stepping into her own power. She was more than a caretaker. She yearned to embrace her individuality and her own aspirations. What if you didn't have to choose? Jack tilted his head, another layer of understanding unfolding between them. What if both could coexist? You can support him while still taking steps forward in your life. The notion buzzed in her veins like electricity. You're right. Maybe I can find a balance. She felt the flutter of possibilities taking root now, intermingling with doubt. But what if he resists? The image of her brother's fierce denial flashed in her mind again, a striking reminder of the battles he waged internally. Then that's part of your growth, Jack replied assertively. You can't control how he reacts, but you can control how much you invest in yourself, and that alone can shift the context for both of you. Ava nodded, absorbing his words, but also reconciling the fear that whispered in the back of her mind. It wasn't simply about modifying her own actions. That fear tugged fiercely at her, warning her against neglecting her brother. The question loomed, how to break free without breaking him. As she reflected on Jack's insight, she noted something about his eyes, a glimmer of shared understanding, as though he too wrestled with a similar dilemma. They had just stumbled upon a new realm of emotional honesty, and this was the moment that marked their shared vulnerability. What's your story? She asked, now eager to unearth the roots of Jack's struggles. I mean, how did you get to the point where you felt so disconnected from everything? He hesitated. It's complicated. I've spent most of my life living up to an image I thought I had to maintain. The loneliness? It's suffocating. A jolt of recognition stirred within Ava. Beneath Jack's bravado lay a depth of feeling that mirrored her own. For both, the journey toward authenticity was riddled with complex layers that begged to be uncovered. Maybe we can help each other, Ava suggested, her confidence swelling. I have a vision for myself, and maybe your clarity can help me shape that. In return, I can assist you with your own journey. Jack's response was slow, contemplative. You might be onto something, he mused, a spark igniting in his eyes. If I can be honest about my vulnerabilities, maybe I can navigate through this mask I've worn for so long. The prospect ignited a sense of synchrony between them. Taking that leap of faith into shared growth felt like stepping onto unsteady ground, yet Ava felt a sense of liberation creep in, a promise of transformation simmering just beneath the surface. As they basked in this moment of potential, Ava's phone buzzed again, breaking the spell. A message from her brother lit up the screen, its urgent tone a stark contrast to the warmth of her conversation with Jack. Can you come home? It read, the weight of responsibility crashing back down. In that instant, Ava felt her resolve intertwined with turmoil once more. How could she balance her burgeoning connection with Jack and the pull to return to her brother? A tension brewed in the air, laced with unspoken decisions. Would she take the plunge into a rediscovery of herself alongside Jack, or would duty yank her back into familiar constraints? The blend of possibility and obligation tugged at her heart, and as she looked back up to Jack, she saw a hint of anticipation in his eyes. "Looks like we're both standing at a crossroads," Ava said, her voice a mixture of determination and hesitation. What happens next could change everything. As both stared into the ever-uncertain future, the clouds of doubt reformed, thickening as they approached an uncharted territory. What revelations would await them on their paths of personal growth? The air felt heavier now, thick with expectation and the weight of choice. Ava stared down at her phone, the digital glow illuminating her uncertainty. She could almost hear the gears turning in Jack's mind as he processed her abrupt decision-making. Would she answer that call of duty or forge ahead with the newfound potential of her identity? "Maybe you should go," Jack offered, breaking through her silence. "But remember, choosing to help him doesn't mean you must sacrifice your own growth. You can balance both worlds." His words hung like a lifeline, tethering her between her familial obligations and her own awakening. Her heart raced as she weighed the implications. Striking out to find personal direction felt intoxicating, yet guilt leafed through her mind, an unshakable presence that reminded her of the promises she made to her brother long ago. What if stepping back from this cycle of caregiving fractured their already tenuous bond? "I don't want to lose him, Jack," Ava finally said, her voice a fragile whisper. "What if I try to establish boundaries, only to find out he needs me more than I thought?" Jack nodded, understanding etched into his expression. "All you can control is your path, not how he interprets it. Sometimes being supportive means recognizing when to step back and let someone else struggle a bit. They'll never grow otherwise." Ava exhaled sharply, grappling with the unsettling recognition that Jack's perspective bore wisdom. It wasn't about neglecting her brother, but rather equipping him to fight his own battles. Wasn't that the ultimate form of love? The thought sent ripples of discomfort through her. "Maybe I should text him back," Ava pondered aloud, her fingers hovering over her phone's screen. The need for clarity surged within her, a desire to reframe her relationship with her brother and shift away from the traditional caregiver role. "You can say you care, but you're also working on your future." "Keep it simple," Jack suggested, watching her thoughtfully. Taking a deep breath, Ava began to type. Each word felt like a small act of defiance against long-held expectations. She felt the thrill of empowerment growing within her. She pressed send, and a surge of liberation washed over her. She wasn't just a shield. She could be a bridge into something greater. As she put the phone down, the gap between possibilities opened. "I think I'm understanding. I have to be brave enough to not just protect him, but to inspire him." "Exactly," Jack encouraged her. "You never know how your changes might be the catalyst for his growth." The conversation shifted, timing itself perfectly aligned as Ava's phone buzzed with a new message. Heart pounding, she read further. Her brother needed her to explain the help he wanted. The request was much more complex than anticipated, pushing the limits of her newfound resolution. "What's it say?" Jack prodded, sensing the shift. "It's about him finding a job, some sense of purpose," Ava replied slowly, fear creeping back in. The weight of their previous dynamic returned, shadowing her newfound clarity. "See, he's searching for something too. He's asking for your connection, not just your shield," Jack replied softly, leaning closer as his expression hardened with concern. This could be a moment to redefine everything. As Jack's words settled within her, Ava felt an unfamiliar blend of fear and excitement. This could indeed be a pivotal choice, not just for her brother, but for herself. The idea excavated old wounds, but also revealed alluring pathways to healing and mutual growth. "I need to figure out what kind of sister I want to be. What do I want from this relationship?" she said thoughtfully, contemplating the interplay of responsibility and individuality. A heavy silence lingered between them, echoing the magnitude of what lay ahead. The thrill of potential, paired with the anxiety of looming responsibilities, spiraled within her. Just then, Jack's phone buzzed, pulling him momentarily back into his world. Ava's mind raced through the possibilities. How could she help her brother become more than just a burden she carried? What did a sister willing to balance care and independence look like in practice? As Jack returned to the conversation, a new determination glimmered within Ava. The path ahead grew uncertain. She would need courage not only for herself, but would have to equip her brother for his own journey. "Okay, let's help each other with our respective paths," Ava proposed, a clarity settling in. "I'll make a plan for him, but I also want to map out my own." Something concrete. Jack raised his eyebrows, intrigued. "What's next for you? What do you envision?" The question resonated, as she once more envisioned a future filled with both support for her brother and the pursuit of her aspirations. It felt as though a door had begun to crack open, but beyond it lay a maze of new uncertainties. "What if we both stepped into the unknown together?" Ava asked, the weight of initiative pressing firmly in the atmosphere. Jack smiled, allowing a sense of shared excitement to propel their conversation forward. As they began weaving strategies and aspirations, both Ava and Jack embraced the exhilarating yet terrifying notion that clarity and confusion coexisted, and through it all, the promise of growth beckoned. In that moment, they were no longer just at a crossroads, but standing before a horizon teeming with complex decisions. Something profound was about to unfold between them, reaching beyond the superfluous choice of duty versus independence. As the evening wore on, Ava felt uncertainty tailing them, shadowing the excitement, as though a storm was brewing. What if they ventured into a partnership that would both uplift and challenge them in ways they couldn't foresee? With every plan made, a trepidation settled in. Would their efforts lead to genuine change? Or would they fall back into old habits, questioning if they could truly help one another grow? The pivotal moment into their new paths loomed, setting the stage for a reckoning that would demand both vulnerability and strength. What awaited them on this journey as they carved out their individual identities while still being tethered in relationship? Ava sat in the quiet of her room, the air filled with the sweet scent of blooming flowers outside the window. A storm brewed inside her, each thought colliding with another as she prepared to tackle her ambitious plans. The weight of the previous conversation with Jack lingered. They had agreed to push their boundaries, yet her resolve felt fragile, threatened by the looming specter of her responsibilities toward her brother. As she picked up a notebook, pages blank, she tapped her pen against it, waiting for the geyser of ideas to erupt. She envisioned a detailed plan for her brother, one that melded his needs with her desire to inspire him rather than simply handing him solutions. This required not just creativity but also a shift in mindset. She needed to see beyond the role of caretaker. She had to become a confidant, a supporter, someone who could encourage him to take those first tentative steps into the workforce. But a tremor of doubt went through her. What if her plans fell flat? What if she couldn't bring herself to follow through? The memories of past disappointments knotted in her stomach, a visceral reminder of all the times her encouragement had met with resistance or indifference. She couldn't ignore the voice inside her head whispering alternative outcomes. What if her brother pushed her away, resisting her attempts at guidance? What if they ventured into a confrontation neither of them was ready for? The stakes felt monumental, not just for her brother, but for her as she attempted to redefine both of their identities. With trembling fingers, she finally scribbled down the first point. Create a brainstorming session with her brother. Nothing too formal, just a conversation that prompted him to discuss his interests and skills. She imagined several scenarios in which it could come to fruition: a coffee shop, their favorite hangout, or the comfort of home with a cozy ambiance. Each option felt like a calculated move that pushed both of them towards autonomy. Next, she needed to think about her aspirations. What did she want beyond her brother's life? So many dreams had been shelved for years, overshadowed by caregiving, and now they flickered to life in her mind's eye. The quiet determination that had simmered under the surface began to capture her attention. After much deliberation, she decided she would draft a plan outlining her own career goals, something tangible she could pursue as she guided her brother. A wave of exhilaration rushed through her as she recognized her ability to influence not just her brother's future, but her own as well. She was a critical component of both narratives, intertwined yet distinct. Unlike before, she wasn't merely seeking validation or escape. she was shaping her reality. However, a sense of dread still nagged at her heart. Could she truly balance this budding professional revival with the care her brother required? The idea unsettled her. Visions of failure drifted into her conscious, igniting that familiar flame of anxiety. She needed a plan, one that outlined both their trajectories without jeopardizing either. With renewed focus, Ava outlined concrete steps for both of them to explore. Encouraging her brother to admit vulnerabilities and goals became as important as her commitment to confronting her own fears. As she jotted down these realizations, she felt a blend of anxiety and hope, two equally powerful forces that coiled around her heart like a tight embrace. But lurking beneath the thrill of newfound direction was a pressing question she couldn't shake. What if her brother resisted the change? What if their identities were so enmeshed that any attempt to redefine roles ended with greater conflict? A chilling thought settled in her mind. This could either fortify their bond or fracture it irreparably. With a final stroke of her pen, she penned down one last thought. Prepare for resistance. The anticipation gripped her like a vice, filling her with both fear and profound determination. The walls she had built around herself and her brother were crumbling, revealing a path shrouded in uncertainty and promise. As night fell, the shadows in her room seemed to mirror the complexity of emotions swirling within her. Inspired by her dialogue with Jack, yet haunted by what lay ahead, Ava realized that this journey wouldn't just be about helping her brother grow. It would require her to unearth parts of herself she had buried beneath obligation for far too long. Something deep within suggested that this was only the beginning. As she prepared for their brainstorming session, a thought echoed in her mind. The moment of confrontation loomed. Change had arrived, but uncertain was the direction it would lead them. What awaited when she would face the truth of their chaotic bond? Would the push for independence break their ties, or would it forge something stronger between them both? She felt the grip of destiny tightening around her, eager for the revelation to unfold. Ava woke up the next morning with a mix of excitement and apprehension, the weight of her plan still fresh in her mind. Today would mark the beginning of a transformative journey for both her and her brother. She felt the promise of new beginnings swirling in the air. But deep down, anxiety knotted in her stomach as she thought about the conversation that lay ahead. She brewed herself a cup of coffee, the aroma filling the kitchen, a soothing balm against the tempest in her thoughts. Her brother Eli often slept late. This had become a pattern in their household, but today she was determined to break the norm. The coffee was her tool, an offering of warmth that she hoped would encourage dialogue. Sipping slowly, Ava reflected on the structure of their upcoming brainstorming session, each aspect meticulously rehearsed in her mind. She envisioned filtering through his interests, perhaps discovering something important about him that he had yet to vocalize. After all, he had always been more than just her brother. He was a companion who had fought alongside her in the battles of their childhood, claiming scraps of joy in their shared confinement. Eli finally emerged from his room, bleary-eyed but curious. She caught his gaze, careful to wear a smile that didn't betray her intentions. "Hey, I made coffee. Thought we could chat," she offered lightly, attempting to mask the burgeoning tension inside her. He settled across from her, a hint of wariness splayed across his features, a reminder of the many conversations that had gone unsaid over the years. "About what?" "About you," she replied, feeling her pulse quicken. "And what you want to do next. I thought we could brainstorm together." "Sounds interesting," he replied slowly, a flicker of interest crossing his face. With careful precision, she nudged the conversation toward his interests first. "What do you like to do, Eli? What do you think you're good at?" It was a delicate dance, one that required Ava to keep her own aspirations at bay. The focus had to remain on him. Each moment that passed without a solid response felt like the ground beneath her shifted, fraught with the fear of rejection. Eli shrugged, mumbling something about video games and movies, but Ava was persistent. She wanted to draw him out of the shadows of self-doubt, echoing visions of him finding not just employment, but fulfillment. The brewing storm of her past insecurities whispered warnings, urging her to tread carefully, to avoid pushing too hard. "Have you ever thought of working in a related field? Gaming, media? What if you were involved in something you genuinely liked? His gaze faltered, uncertainty etched across his features. What if it's just not for me? Ava's heart stumbled at his admission. This confrontation was the ground zero of their transformation, a battleground wrought with unstepped-on hopes and perceived limitations. But what if it is? She countered gently, imploring him to consider the possibility. Silence enveloped them, thick and heavy. She sensed the resistance, the hesitation. Even as hope flickered, so did fear's cold embrace. This was not simply about her hopes. It was about Eli finding his footing while she stood witness, offering support while navigating her own labyrinth of aspirations. A ding from her phone startled them both. It was a message from Jack, a simple reminder of their upcoming meeting. A jolt of determination surged within her, an intention to blend both tracks of her life. She realized preemptively that any progress in her journey would ripple into her brother's. Suddenly she found herself at a crossroads, weighed heavier by the responsibilities she bore. The whispers of her self-doubt threatened to cloud her resolve again. What if Eli stunted her aspirations just as she tried to liberate his? She needed this brainstorming session to succeed. The fear of failure held such power over her. "Let's set some small goals, Eli. Nothing scary," she pressed. The words barely felt her own, yet she grasped them as if they were a lifeline. What about exploring possible jobs or projects? Start there, just dip your toes in. He stared down at his cup, then met her gaze, curiosity mingling with uncertainty. "I guess I could think about it." "That's a start," she encouraged, her heart leaping at what could be the turning point they both desperately needed. Yet, even as relief washed over her, a new ache took shape within. Could she truly embrace her own ambitions while supporting him? Would her aspirations fade again beneath his shadow? As they moved further into the conversation, Ava felt the lingering question echoing persistently in her mind. When would it be her turn to dream out loud? With the shadows of their past colliding with the uncertainty of their future, a poignant realization set in. The fight for freedom and purpose had begun, but at what cost? The delicate balance was more fragile than ever, as their lives intertwined yet loomed along treacherous paths. What awaited her and Eli as they explored the uncharted territory of aspirations, fears, and support? Would confronting their vulnerabilities strengthen their bond, or would it lead to upheaval neither of them was ready to embrace? Ava sat back, a mixture of hope and trepidation coursing through her. The coffee shared between her and Eli had transformed into a catalyst for potential change. Echoing through her mind were the words she and Jack exchanged. The gravity of their meaning had found a place in her heart. Her ambition and her brother's stability were finally aligning, yet the uncertainty remained palpable. "Eli, think about it this way," she began, trying to draw him in with a confidence she didn't fully feel. "This isn't just about finding a job. It's about rediscovering who you are. You told me you love gaming. Have you ever thought about what kind of jobs are related?" He shifted slightly, revealing both apprehension and curiosity. "I guess I never really looked into it. It felt pointless." "Nothing is pointless if it carries the potential to reveal something new," she encouraged. "There are so many avenues you could explore. Game design, marketing, even writing reviews. We can research it together." Eli's eyes flickered with a hint of intrigue. The idea of discovery, of navigating a new landscape of possibilities, began to blossom. "You really think I could do any of that?" "Absolutely," Ava asserted, conviction pouring from her voice. "But here's the key. You have to want this too. We can support each other. I'm going to take steps in my own life, and I want you to do the same." Her heart raced as the challenge transitioned from mere words into the heart of their conversation. The silence that followed seemed to linger, thick with the weight of potential. Ava clung to the thread of hope that ran through the tension, pushing off the familiar fears that loomed ominously. If part of her journey was helping Eli rediscover himself, their growth could be intertwined rather than stifled. "What if it doesn't end up like I want? What if I fail?" His voice trembled as vulnerability seeped through the cracks of his facade. "Then we'll recalibrate," she replied, a fervent energy building within. "We can talk about it. What if you try something new and it changes your life forever? You deserve to find meaning outside of what's comfortable, just like I do. Their exchanges sparked a shift in direction, each question opening doors they had never thought to investigate. Ava felt the previous confines that had molded their relationship begin to shift, reforming into something more balanced, where the responsibilities were shared rather than one-sided. "You're right," Eli said softly, seemingly understanding the weight of her words. "It does feel like I'm stuck sometimes." Ava leaned forward. "Let's make an agreement. We'll both take steps. You seek out opportunities that interest you, and I'm going to put my artistic goals in motion. Together, we chart a path forward." As she spoke, a sense of excitement bubbled within her. This wasn't just about Eli anymore, it was about a collective journey toward discovery. "What are your goals?" Eli asked, curiosity sprinkling his tone. "I want to explore my art. It's my passion," she admitted, finding the words liberating. "I plan to create a portfolio and send it to galleries and publishers. I want to make my aspirations more than just dreams." Eli's expression shifted from uncertainty to a budding recognition. "How will you feel if it works out?" Ava paused, reflecting on the question. "I think fulfilled. To see my work out in the world would mean everything to me. It would validate that this time spent on my craft was worth it." Empathy radiated from her brother, and she sensed that the initial grounds of their conversation were shifting again, intertwining the paths of their aspirations. "Then I should probably try to do the same," he said. "Maybe explore some local game design or coding courses." "That's perfect," Ava encouraged, tearing down her past fears that whispered about his reluctance. "Invite me to join you for brainstorming sessions if you want. It's going to be more fun together." With newfound determination, light flickered behind Eli's eyes as they began to map out their individual pursuits. Each idea sparked energy between them, turning aspirations into practical goals. Meanwhile, a resurgence of anxiety loomed as a reminder in the background. The complexities of their shared burdens still weighed on her. A question nagged her. Was her brother ready for this change, or would it spiral their relationship into chaos? "Let's check in together next week," Ava proposed, feeling the need to keep the momentum alive. "We'll share progress or setbacks, whatever it may be. I want to make sure we're both committed to this journey." "Yeah, I can do that," Eli said. "But if I find myself sliding back into old habits, I hope you'll call me out." "Deal," she chuckled, realizing that in taking this leap of faith, they were both intertwining their futures in unexpected ways. As they finished their conversation, the shift enveloped her, the ebb and flow of responsibility now balanced with individual pursuits. Ava smiled, feeling lighter beneath the weight of possibility. Their paths had finally begun to converge, creating new opportunities for both of them to grow and realize their potential. Facing the unknown felt less daunting now. They were in this together, and that deepened their bond. After her brother returned to his room, Ava reflected on what had transpired. She realized this moment of shared aspirations represented her achievement, a balance of support, the courage to pursue their individual journeys, and the understanding that growth didn't have to diminish their relationship, it could fuel it. With her sketchbook by her side, she opened it and began to outline her portfolio ideas. A sense of steadiness settled over her, a solid confidence that, for the first time, she was sculpting her own artistic identity, while guiding Eli to forge his path. Embracing this newfound realization, Ava felt the satisfaction coursing through her veins. She was no longer just a caretaker, she was becoming an artist, redefining herself and inviting Eli along on a journey of discovery. As she drew the first lines in her sketchbook, the fluidity of change danced above the horizon, a promise of future triumphs just waiting to unfold. And as she turned to look out of the window, she understood that both of their journeys were just beginning, that they could conquer challenges together. Those dreams were no longer separate. They were part of a much larger picture, one where both of them had a rightful place. Now more than ever, Ava was ready to embrace the transformative paths ahead. They could grow, respect each other, and ultimately find their fulfillment that would reform not just their future, but the story they shared as siblings. Even in uncertainty, Ava was grateful. They had ignited their own journeys toward empowerment and recognition, and she was poised to step forward with purpose. In that moment, she felt a surge of empowerment as the ink on her pages began telling the vivid tales of not merely dreams, but concrete achievements born of their individual quests. And with that realization, she had finally found her place. Subscribe immediately to the channel. You need to subscribe now to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. It really makes a difference, trust me. Comment your reactions, thoughts, and theories about the ending below. Your feedback is essential to us. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. True fans of personal overcoming stories understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.